The origin of the club began around 1933 with several enthusiasts getting together to train at several local pubs with a spare room. The founding members being John Jones, Walter Jones, Ron Jenkins, Elwyn Lewis, Mansell Denner, Jack Acox and Gordon Davis. Things started to settle down after 1945 and returned to normal. The Darian boys, seen here, moved into the Aberdeen Educational Settlement. This picture was taken in August 1947. Pictured in the back row is the founding member, John Jones, shoulders like big boys. So now you know why we call him Big John. On the right of Big John is Jack Acock, and next to him Mansell Denner. Pictured on the right of the front row is Myrddin Palmer. Pictured front left is Gordon Davis, who was the first honorary secretary of the Darian, and next to him his brother John Davis. Olympic lifting is a highly technical sport. It consists of two lifts, one the snatch and the other the clean and jerk. A third lift called the press was part of Olympic lifting until just after the 1972 Olympics. So the news clipping reads, South Wales weightlifters at Aberdeen. The Darian Health and Strength Club organised a rally of South Wales weightlifters at the Educational Settlement on Saturday, which was the 22nd of March 1947. We are certainly not here to gloat that a team representing Aberdeen defeated Swansea by £1,700 against £1,610 total for the combined teams. So that was 77 years ago now. Yes, Darian boys! What I want to draw your attention to is, you see at the bottom where it says Aberdeen and they're bringing up the totals. So the total of the three guys there, Walter Jones, J. Acock and R. Barnes, would have come to £1,700 for the combined team effort. And if you focus in on W. Jones, that's Walter Jones, Walter and John Jones being brothers, he's got a total of £715. So that total of £715 would have been for the snatch and the clean and jerk combined, with the press also. In the late 40s, the Welsh Physical Culture League, in its first year, was an undoubted success. Launched by big publicity in Bodybuilder, Over the Air and in the press, the scheme aimed at providing an incentive for gymnastics, weightlifting, physical excellence and judo. Any person gaining official honours in these sports won points for the town in which he lived according to an agreed formula. 23 towns in Wales were actually in the league. In these early days of the physical culture, the club was one of the first in the country to hold weightlifting, bodybuilding, hand balancing, etc. in the form of a physical culture show. These popular shows were mainly held at the Coliseum Theatre in Aberdeen around 1947. The bodybuilding side of the Darian was well represented in the early part of its life, with Myron Palmer winning the 1948 Junior Mr. Britain. And here we see in 1949, Hubert Thomas won the Mr. Wales, and Miss Wales was won by Pat Holding. If you notice, this was once again held in Aberdeen. So 1950, Mr. and Miss Wales again was held at the Coliseum. Long before the Olympia came along, the top bodybuilding show in the world was the Mr. Universe. Reg Park won the Mr. Universe in 1951. However, if you take a look down that list, you will see another name on there, a Darian boy, Myron Palmer, once again, here also making a cover. In the early 1950s until early 1970s, the club produced some outstanding weightlifters. Ron Jenkins, British featherweight champion, who also represented Wales in the 1954 Empire Games, Vancouver, Canada. At the same time, Empire Games, another club member, Alwyn Evans, lifted at mid-heavyweight, winning a bronze medal. The number of Welsh champions in both Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting would be too numerous to list, other than to say that Darian was regarded as one of the leading clubs not only in Wales but also in Great Britain. The Darian played a major role in the Empire Games of 1958, supplying both referees and the loading team being held at the Barry Memorial Hall. In the early 60s, Alan Colquhoun of Mountain Ash, who worked at Penrith Colliery, won 2 Junior Mr. Wales titles. Remember the name Colquhoun. On to 1961, an international match, Wales versus Ireland, back at the Coliseum in Aberdeen. On the left-hand side at the bottom of the page at number 5, you'll notice that Ron Jenkins was still competing. He'd moved up to the lightweight division, and this was a press, a snatch, and a clean and jerk competition against Ireland. Top of the page, right-hand side, where it says 6, Physique Extraordinary, Eddie Williams was Mr. Glamorgan at the time, and Alan Colquhoun, Junior Mr. Wales. Eddie Williams captured the Mr. Wales title a few years after this. Believe it or not, I bought my first set of weights ever off Eddie when I was about 14 years old. And in 1962, at the New Theatre in Mountain Ash, Wales versus Scotland, a British Empire trial. In the Wales versus Scotland International, 2 names stand out, Ron Jenkins, and on the right-hand side, if you notice, Dave Prowse. Jim Davis, another member of the Darian in the early 60s, had the junior Welsh record in the 9-stone class. Here are Jim's certificates. Notice who they were awarded by: Jay Acox and Les Evans. A lot of the Darian boys were not only champions in their own right, but they also became coaches and officials. In the Wales versus Ireland international match of 61, if you notice the officials, the MC was Jack Acox, the stage manager was John Jones, but turn your attention to the recorders, L. Evans and Mrs. L. Evans.
I'm here talking to Bev Morris, and Bev's got the an enviable position of being the oldest serving Darian Gym member. So what age were you when you joined the gym, the Darian Gym, Bev?
16 years old.
16, and what year was that?
1944, 1960.
1960. And I believe that the Darian was then in Park Lane, up at the Aberdare Park. What are your memories of the Park Lane Darian Gym?
That was a test to any trainer. It was a wooden. It used to be a hospital for diseases years ago. All the wood building with cracks everywhere, half the windows out.
So the Darian has never really been plush in its history, then,
Never.
apart from the current one.
The current one now is the gym of gyms. Because when we were in Park Lane, there'd be snow coming in the windows when we were training, and it was just no showers, no heating, nothing.
So do you remember the founders? I believe it was
The
John
founders
Jones.
were John Jones, Dr. Jones's brother, Elwyn Lewis, Jim Hicks. They were the founder member of the Darian Club.
Well, how big was the Park Lane Gym then? Was it?
Oh, it was quite a big building.
Yeah.
But we never had machines or anything. It was all just free weights.
Yeah. And I believe, like you've told me this before, that there were weightlifters, so Olympic lifters, and then there were guys that were
bodybuilders and weightlifters in the same gym. Then.
Yeah.
The lifting platform was up the top end of the gym, and then all the weights are down.
Yeah.
But we had some good weightlifters. One, in fact, Ron Jenkins, won a bronze medal in the Olympic Games in Cardiff.
Yes. Yeah. Was the club open all the time? Were they just set nights?
No, it was nothing more or less. If you wanted to have the key, you could go in. You could train in the day. If it was like a lot of the boys were working shifts,
Yeah.
days, nights, afternoons, and they'd have a key and go in and lock up after that. But it wasn't left open.
Yeah.
Because it was out of the way, see, and if anybody could go in there and steal it, they'd steal the weights and all
Okay.
that.
They have to be strong thieves then.
Quite right.
I believe then that the Darian changed its location sometime in the 70s?
Yes, we went from the Darian in up there to Lewis Street in Aberarman, upstairs in Lewis Street.
Yeah. So with the same lifters come to that gym then?
No, the weightlifting was down. We had two sets, and we go up the stairs as you went in. You had the bottom room where the platform was.
Yeah.
And then you go up another set of stairs, and then that was where the bodybuilders were.
Yeah. Okay, so it was similar, I suppose, to Park Lane, that there was different sections.
When we moved from Park Lane, the weightlifting as such drifted off.
Yeah.
It was just bodybuilding. But like I say, we had some good, strong boys, weightlifters. Greg Wilcox, in fact, he lifted for the police and everything.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
But Ron Jenkins was a stalwart of the club because they used to have tournaments. The gyms in Cardiff were come up and we'd have competitions.
Yeah. I've noticed that going through some archives that places like the Colosseum used to have like a full events night, including weightlifting and strength events and physique.
It ended up in the Colosseum of just bodybuilding. The weightlifting had gone down out to the window, that was finished. But we did quite a few shows in the 70s in the Colosseum, and bodybuilders from all over Wales used to come there. You know, there's a good run, and the boys in the gym used to run it.
Yeah. If my mathematics is correct, so you joined the gym in 1960, so 64 years now you've been a...
Not an active member no more, but...
No, but you can still say that you are, you are still the oldest person that alive that was it
Darian member?
Darian member, yes.
Another good weightlifter that came out of the Darian was Alistair Wilson. He was Dr. Wilson's boy. They lived in Park Lane, and he won a few championships, Welsh championships.
The force remained strong in the Darian throughout the 60s. If you recall, David Prowse later on in the 70s in Star Wars, he played Darth Vader. Now, Big John would regularly put up David Prowse in the 60s when he came around for competitions. The founding fathers, like John Jones and like Walter Jones, were first-generation Darian. Big John was born in 1917. So the team water polo picture that you've seen with a young Bev Morris, 20 years old, in 1964, Big John would have been 47 by then. In the Wales versus Ireland International at the Coliseum in 1961, the recorders were Les Evans and Mrs. Les Evans. John Jones was stage manager, so you could say that the recorders were second generation Darian. Why? Well, because Mrs. L. Evans was actually the daughter of John Jones. Les Evans, who had stepped into the Darian Gym at 12 years old, became Big John's son-in-law. The force remained strong in the Darian. Heroine Man wins Far East RAF Discus title. We hear from the press officer of Headquarters, Far East Air Force, Singapore, that a Heroine Man 31-year-old flight lieutenant, Les Evans, an officer instructor at the FEAF Jungle Survival School, distinguished himself in the Force's Athletics Championship at Singapore. Subheading champion, weightlifting and karate are the flight lieutenant's main sports, and he was Welsh middle heavyweight weightlifting champion in 1964 and 1965, and competed in several international events. He also holds a black belt first dan in karate. Lieutenant Evans was a teacher before he went into the RAF as a physical fitness instructor in 1962. He was team leader in the freefall display team. Les Evans then made more than 200 parachute descents as a jungle survival school instructor.
Don't push it, I'll give you a war you won't believe.
In the 60s or so, Les Evans did the senior coaching course in Bisham Abbey with Al Murray, who in 1960 to 61 was the British team coach. And who else was on there but the old buddy, Dave Prowse, Darth Vader. Here is Les in the group photograph in the front row, and Dave Prowse is the tallest guy in the middle at the back, the guy with the checkered shirt. Here is Les rubbing shoulders with Darth Vader. You can see him on the left hand side of Dave Prowse. The Darian Gym and their coaches have a tradition of being makers of men. The question to Flight Lieutenant Evans is this: did God make you, or was it John Jones that made you?
Whatever possessed God in heaven to make a man like Rambo?
God didn't make Rambo. I made him.
The 1970 Commonwealth Games held in Edinburgh. In the weightlifting, Myrion Williams lifted as a featherweight, John Jones was the Welsh team manager, and Jerry Hall acting as a technical officer. In the following year, Jerry Hall was the Welsh team manager with matches against England, Scotland and Belgium. In 1970, the Darian Gym moved once again to Lewis Street in Aberystwyth. It used to be the Co-op back in the day. The naming of the club lay with founder member John Jones. Darian meaning warrior. The Darian doesn't have a direct meaning in Welsh. In the Irish, it means oak tree. In the Greek, gift. In the Greek, Darios means possessing goodness, or he who holds firm. Jerry says the name means warrior. He wasn't wrong there. There was plenty of warrior spirit at the Darian Gym. Les Evans has an altogether different take on the name Darian. He reckons that it comes from Aberdare, as in Aberdarian. Trying to remain impartial here, I rather like all renditions of the name Darian.
And unto this Conan, destined to bear the jeweled crown of Aquilonia upon a troubled brow. It is I, his chronicler, who alone can tell thee of his saga. Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
So this would have been the Darian in the early 70s. I recognise Jerry there with the glasses. On his right is Wayne Phillips, and I think the guy in front of them is a young Peter Morgan, champ. From 1970 to 1990 was considered to be the golden age of bodybuilding. Of course, during that time period, there were also powerlifting champions and Olympic lifting champions training alongside the bodybuilders at the Darian. The arduous sport of powerlifting consists of 3 different lifts and then a total of those 3. The bench press, the deadlift, and the squat. Maximum poundage in each for a single rep. Without doubt, the strongest member of the Darian Gym was Champ, Peter Morgan. As a junior, Champ was mid-heavyweight champion in Olympic lifting. Then he turned his attention to powerlifting and became the Welsh powerlifting champion. He became the British Masters champion twice, competed in the European Masters Powerlifting Championship and the World Masters Powerlifting Championship. This particular sheet is in kilograms. Do you see where it says Denmark 1995? Here's Champ in the Denmark World Masters Powerlifting Championship. Champ competed as a super heavyweight, which meant that he weighed over 20 stone. I'm kind of old school, so I still work in pounds. If you look at the top with his personal bests, his squat 727.5 pounds, bench 424.4 pounds, deadlift 661.4 pounds. and his personal best for all three lifts, 1,763.7 pounds. Consider the length of Champ's lifting career. He was British Olympic champion as a junior, and then he was still competing at 46 years old. Amazing, absolutely incredible career. These pictures are old pictures of Champ. I couldn't do much with them, but they're certainly some of my favourite pictures. This one in particular is at the Darian Gym. Steve Williams started powerlifting in 1975. He was 19 years old. Steve was introduced by Stuart Brooks, aka Vasher Brooks, aka Brooksy. What a great character. Steve entered his first competition in February 1976 in the 56 kilogram class. In 1976, 1977, 1978 and 1981, Steve won the Welsh Championship for the 56 kilogram class. Steve broke the Welsh 60 kilogram squat record in 1982, and he repeated that again in 1983 and broke the record in the 60 kilogram class with a squat of 170 kilograms. Steve retired from the sport in 1983, but we shall see a little bit later more of Steve because he makes a comeback in 1997. This is a 1978 news clipping reporting on the Welsh Powerlifting Championships. The article reads, Darian Weightlifting Club made a big impact at the Welsh Powerlifting Championships held at Llanelli, YMCA. They entered 7 competitions, 2 junior and 5 senior, and won 3 titles, 3 seconds and 1 no lift, not completing the total number of lifts required. The winners were, in the 56 kilo class, Stephen Williams, in the 90 kilo class, Mike Jones, and in the 110 kilo plus class, Peter Morgan, aka Champ. Wayne Phillips was a very close second in the 67.5 kilo class. Mike Evans was second in the 75 kilo class, the club's first junior. Paul Fletcher was second in the 82.5 kilo class. Mal Williams bombed out in the 82.5 kilo class, and numerous Welsh records were broken during the event. So on the left hand side you'll see the weight of the powerlifter in kilos. Then you see each of their 3 lifts and their total: the squat, the bench press, the deadlift and the total. Mike Brown lifted as a guest in the 110 plus class and deadlifted only to break the Welsh deadlift record, having broken it by 17 pounds to bring it up to 722 pounds. So the picture you saw earlier with Steve Williams on the left hand side, the guy in the middle is Wayne Phillips, and on the right hand side is Graham Furlong. This was 1981, and this article is reporting on the Welsh Powerlifting Championships. In the 56 kilogram class, Steve Williams won. In the 67.5 kilogram class, Wayne Phillips, he won. Peter Morgan, aka Champ, came second. Graham Furlong was a junior in 1981, and he kind of started off well with a squat of 150 kilogram, but unfortunately in the bench press failed to make a good lift, so he was eliminated from the contest. However, Graham would come back in 1982 and in 1983 and win the Welsh Junior Powerlifting Championship. Classic pose down with Graham and Lawrence outside the Coliseum. I reckon you agree. I reckon Lawrence takes you on this one.
Hi, I'm Paul Clark. I started in the Darian Gym in 1977. I was asked by Big George Mackay to be his training partner. What a baptism of fire. Trained very hard, no rest, no compromise. I just loved it. I remember the weightlifting, powerlifting part of the gym, and up some steps, bodybuilding area. The mirrors, pictures of the old bodybuilders, Reg Parks, Bill Pearl, Boyer Coe, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Franco Colombo, and many others. I remember Jerry, great guy he was, the epitome of all that the Darian stood for. Going on trips organised by Jerry to the Mr. Adonis at Cumban, the Mr. Wales Memorial Hall, Barry, the Double Diamond Club at Caerphilly, British Championship. Compere was Paul Grant, guest star Franco Colombo. Then at the Lewis Merthyr Club in Porth, Robbie Robson giving his seminar. All three featured in the documentary film Pumpin' Iron.
I have only one thought in mind. We're gonna win. That's it, no more. It's gonna be very hard to beat.
And lastly, our own Wayne Thickett, winning the over 40s Mr. Wales at Porthcawl Pavilion. I started back in the Darian when asked by my good friend Steve Hill to be his training partner. I talked with Jerry when he brought in his old scrapbooks to show me before moving into Abercrombie Rugby Club. He was so proud of it all. Great man, true legend, Mr. Darian. I still train with my old friend Andrew Griffiths, but now I train against the clock and old Father Time. To all the old Darian boys of years past, thanks so much for all the memories.
Hi guys, this is Steve Hill. It's a huge privilege to be asked to contribute something to the history of the Darian. I joined the Darian Gym in 1978 and trained until 1982 when I emigrated to South Africa. The guys give me a great send-off. When I started, Jerry put me to train with a young Wayne Thickett, who was later to win many bodybuilding titles. He's a Darian legend. When I came back from South Africa, I trained with my good mate Paul Clark for 2 years. We all trained under the watchful eye of the great Jerry Hall, Master Blaster, who encouraged us, bollocked us, but always got the best out of us. I can still hear him saying now, "Put those weights back, where's your cons?" Brilliant. I trained in the Darian altogether for about 8 years. The camaraderie of the boys was brilliant. Never get anything in another gym like that. I'm 71 now, but still train 3 times a week in the garage with my brother, but will always consider myself an old Darian guy.
Hi, this is Leighton Bryant. Going through an old training diary, I noticed a day in April 1980 when I stepped into the Darian Gym. In comparison to today's facilities, it was definitely spit and sawdust. It was only the sign in the outside of a dilapidated building off Lewis Street, Aberramon, that suggested any occupation, as the broken windows covered with polythene seemed to suggest otherwise. Climbing the steep stairs, you pass the washroom facilities, a toilet and showers, which I never experienced, supplying anything but cold water. The stairs led into a changing room complete with professional balance scales and hanging clothes rails at head height. The gym itself was 2 large rooms with a lifting platform in the lower room leading to an upper room containing free weights and machines. An older guy named Jerry took me under his wing and supplied me with a program and explained sets and reps. I learned to realise that this is what Jerry loved, to coach, mentor and teach. The Darian shaped my teenage life, and its influence still continues to this day. I look back with such fondness of the atmosphere and the homemade machines, the unevenness of the floor and lack of heating in winter. One day I remember opening the gym's main door to be met with a torrent of water running down the stairs due to burst pipes. Jerry used to organise clean-up days where accumulated rubbish would be disposed of and parquet flooring tiles replaced. It was a fruitless exercise as the gym returned to its scruffy state soon after. Training partners were essential if you were serious about trying to reach your potential. I teamed up with Nicky Pritchard, who travelled up from Mountain Ash or Perth Celyn, often by push bike in all weathers. The Barbarians, as we were nicknamed by Jerry, quickly obtained a key to the gym, so as well as the Monday, Wednesday, Friday routines, we also did a Sunday morning, as we thought more was definitely better. There were some great characters in the gym with banter, swap particularly between bodybuilders and powerlifters, such as Graham Furlong, Wayne Phillips, Lawrence and Pete, Champion Morgan.
He's gonna fix me up with your sister.
Oh, yeah. I remember Nicky making a bet with Champ for £50 that he would squat £700 within 5 years. I still think he owes Champ the money.
Yes, come on. Squat. Yes. Yeah, come on.
The gym's camaraderie extended to extracurricular activities such as bodybuilding shows and Christmas celebrations, which involved the famous cow pie meals at the Full Moon Aberdare. The most memorable trip was probably the 1982 Mr. Olympia at Wembley, where we watched Bertil Fox, Casey Vater, Frank Zane, Tom Platz and the eventual winner Chris Dickerson. I left Aberdare aged 20, so my time as a regular Darian Gym member only lasted 6 years, but had such an enduring impact, particularly with physical and mental health, self-discipline and the lifelong friendships formed.
Jerry also acted as Chief Marshal in several more Commonwealth Games, European and World Weightlifting Championships. Other notable names in Olympic weightlifting: Colin Dunn, Robert Prince, he was the junior champ, mid-heavyweight, Greg Wilcox, he was second in the Welsh Juniors, South Wales senior champion. Myrion Williams and Greg Wilcox won the Welsh Team Hope. Here are a couple of pictures of Jerry doing his official duties in Olympic lifting.
Possible shape for a film I'm going to do, which is Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, is the third. The fourth contestant, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Timeline-wise then, we are in the early 80s. The early 80s was considered as part of the golden era of bodybuilding, and certainly at the Darian Gym there was a huge amount of enthusiasm with us youngsters. In the early 80s in the Darian Gym, the atmosphere was electric. You had the powerlifting boys, maybe as many as 7 or 8 guys preparing for the Welsh Championships. You'd have Greg Wilcox perhaps training for an Olympic competition, and then you had us many youngsters, about 6 of us, who were also competing in the Mr. Wales competition in Barry. Now, if you thought the 1980 Mr. Olympia was controversial with Arnold and Mike Menser, that was nothing in comparison to either the 1981 or 1982 Junior Mr. Wales. In the picture above, you will see that Kieran Shepherd was announced the Junior Mr. Wales winner, with Mark Jones next to him on his right hand side in second place. Mark was a Darian boy. Kieran! Kieran! Do you remember those cries from the Barry Memorial Hall? Anyway, the kicker was this. Danny Williams, the MC, about 4 months later, called Jerry and said that the judges had made a mistake, that Mark Jones was actually the Junior Mr. Wales winner, and not Kieran Shepherd. Unfortunately, in 1983, Kieran got his revenge and he took second in the novice Mr. Wales contest, and Mark Jones took third.
I'd like to say the start of my journey in the Darian Gym, when I walked in there as a young lad at 13 years of age, and Peter Morgan was squatting crazy amount of weights. John Dav was bench pressing crazy amount of weight. And I, as a 13-year-old, thinking, oh my God, that's amazing. And who standing in the middle of the gym was Jerry. And he said, what do you want, bud? So I pleasantly said, I'd like to train if I could, please. He said, how old are you? I said, 13. He said, too young, sit there. So I sat down, which I done for a full week. Every night, went in there, sat down, watched, sit down, watched. After a week, he said, right, but you're pretty keen. You can start training next Monday. I said, okay, thank you. As I was walking out the door, he shouted, don't forget to tell your mother and father 50p a night, but. And that was that. So out I went. I went back. 6 months after training with Jerry, he had me in the Teenage Mr. Wales. NABA Teenage Mr. Wales, where I placed third. From there on, he took me here, there and everywhere, competing in NABA and different competitions around Wales.
1987 novice class. Notice Graham Furlong, left hand side, switching up to bodybuilding from powerlifting. Ellis Davis, another great character from the Darian. Ellis is another old training partner of mine. We climbed a lot of mountains together. Back in the day, of course, his training partner was Paul Snap. Oh, it looks like Ellis might have something on the line here. He's still going with the press-ups. 98 L, 99, 100. Oh my God, look at the monster fish he got here. Oh, get a bag of chips, put that on a plate and we'd be laughing. Ellis was a great training partner in the gym, as well as watching your back when he worked on the door. He was like a Viking. Ellis always cracked me up with his dry sense of humor. Get ready for the doorman interviews Ellis, the bouncer interviews, another project coming up. You have this trophy, I have no idea what it's for, but it looks nice. I don't want to embarrass you well in public. Any chance of that 20 quid from 1985, but there's Ellis in his Viking gear, just about to man the door. Who's that with Ellis at Aberdeen Market? Look, they've got the same hair.
My personal journey that forged a lifelong association with the Darian Gym started from participation in many sports, but in particular rugby. Conditioning using weights to improve performance was in its infancy, though I remember being impressed with Gareth Edwards' strength in TV superstars during the weightlifting discipline, sometime in the 70s. Age 14 and weighing 10 stone, I turned up at the Darian Gym, fascinated by the opportunities of self-development through the use of resistance training. I was taken under the wing of Jerry Hall, who soon influenced me in his philosophies of hard work, basic exercises and a good diet. Jerry took time to produce training programs which were handwritten on notepaper and given to us to follow. We thought we knew better and would often add extra exercises or do more sets than prescribed, leading to being regularly bollocked by Jerry for meandering off his routine. Jerry one day offered to analyse my diet as I was keen to put on muscle. So over a week I noted everything I ate per day. A few weeks later Jerry came back with his results, which were fairly complimentary, but he also pointed out I was consuming, on average, 6,500 calories per day, and that he was grateful he didn't have to support me and my food bill. Jerry was a great raconteur, particularly regarding the bodybuilders he'd seen or spoken to, and the powerlifting and weightlifting contest he'd been involved in. He had a deep knowledge on the history of strongmen and feats of strength, which was something that fascinated him. Certain stories were repeated, but I never tired of hearing ones, such as Reg Parks, who was Jerry's as well as Arnold's hero during a seminar. Jerry was fascinated by the interval when Reg walked up to the front of the stage with a suitcase which he duly opened to reveal it was full of sandwiches which he then began to consume. During annual pilgrimages to the Mr. Universe show, he recalled seeing competitors. One in particular was Sergio Oliver, who stood next to him with Jerry commenting on how he couldn't span his hand across the thickness of his arms, they were so big. His favourite tale was of a strongman hired for an evening of weightlifting, physique and feats of strength show held at the Coliseum Aberdeen sometime in the 60s. The strongman picked out an audience member to assist with his act, which culminated in being hit with a sledgehammer whilst wearing a gong across his chest. John Jones, who was one of the founders of the Darian, quietly asked if he wanted him to fake the intensity of the hammer blow, to which the guy replied, "Just hit me as hard as you can." The outcome was that the strongman landed in the second row of the audience and was taken away in an ambulance. The atmosphere within the Darian on weeknights was great. Older members generally keeping us young upstarts in our place and acting as role models and enforcers. Men like John Dav a hardened rugby player, strong as an ox, uncompromising, but still open and accommodating to other gym members. Our enthusiasm rubbed off as John joined us with physique contest preparation, entering the Mr. Wales over 40s class. Bev Morris was and remains a lovely guy who was the longest serving member of the Darian Gym. Bev usually trained in a vest, loved bench press and other upper body exercises, though amusingly I never saw him once train legs. Other influential characters were some of the powerlifters, including Lawrence and Wayne Phillips. I particularly remember their own training area. The bodybuilders generally used a room with mirrors. When they did enter our domain, it was usually to tell us that we were doing exercises incorrectly or using too much weight. I respected the older guys immensely, hard-working, dedicated and loyal. I remember Wayne coming to my aid one day after I dropped a bar onto a bench, jamming my finger. He coolly led me to the showers and pulled off the nail hanging by a thread from my finger. I still use the Darian Gym, which is now part of the Aberconboy Rugby Club, though I remember the good old days where dreams were made, friendships forged and memories ingrained forever.
Memories go back a long way. When you used to come to the gym and we trained together, and I go back a long way now because I'm coming up to 85, and I started training when I was about, on weights anyway, at 16 years of age. Never really stopped, and it was a great place to come to with the camaraderie of all the boys. The gym has changed in so much that it left Aberdare, it went to Aberraman, then it found its home in the Aberconboy area, and Aberconboy built a new rugby club, and they had a room which we had as a gym, and it was brilliant because all of a sudden we had toilets, we had showers, we had heating, we had air conditioning, and it was great, and it still is great. It's a very nice gym. It's all about exercising. Well, I think it started around 1956. When a neighbour was a big guy and had done weight training, etc., etc., and I used to watch him pumping some iron in the garden. And I decided, you know what, that's what I'd like to do. And we started our own little club in Mountain Ash, and eventually it became a problem with it. It was great actually, it was with the year of Go Boys Cymru. And then we joined the Darian Club. And the Darian Club was up in Aberraman, and that's where it all started from. But then all of a sudden it came up about why not enter this club competition, and we did, and I did. We trained together, and I won 6 or 7 competitions. I won a couple of powerlifting competitions, but I never trained for that. It is all about bodybuilding, if that's what you want, NABA and all that type of thing. There's no one of the problems we had in my era was the fact that we didn't have any money to buy enough food. Because when we talk today about people 5,000 calories training in a week, we were lucky to have 2,000 calories. All of a sudden, who comes along but a guy called Wayne Thickett, I think. Now, Wayne's the young man Wayne Thickett came along to the gym, and he was training well, and all of a sudden he was watching his progress. Oh, it was incredible what he was doing, and he got on and on. But then Wayne was tremendous as far as diet was concerned. And he had a great diet, and he was eating the right foods, doing the right things, etc., etc. Which was a lesson to me, I suppose, because we never had that situation. And then, when Wayne had done a lot of competitions, and won a lot of competitions, he said to me, John, why don't you train with me now, and enter the Mr. Britain over 50s, right? I was 54 at the time, and to train with Wayne was a great pleasure. Because I was an old dog, I thought I knew it all, but Wayne went down a different road. He was training one body part a session, or perhaps 2 body parts a session. Whereas in the old days, we always trained every body part. Wayne's diet was incredible, where he made sure he cut out a great deal of the fat. He had protein, a lot of protein. It was chicken, it was rice. It was all this type of thing, which I never did. But then I did then with Wayne, in my 50s, and it was great. It was nutritional, and above all, it helped with training, but it's also very healthy, which we can carry on then into your 60s, 70s, and 80s. If you don't do any training, you can carry on making sure that diet. The last thing I want to see is myself and people like Wayne in an obesity situation.
In 1990, the Darian was threatened with closure. The Darian had been at the rear of the old Co-op warehouse in Lewis Street, Aberystwyth. The Darian first moved there in 1970, so it had been there for 20 years. Chairman of the Darian, Mr. John Jones, is mentioned, which I'm delighted by. I make him 73 in 1990. Dennis Jones, who, through the help of the Aberdale leader, was instrumental in securing new premises at Abercwmboi Rugby Club. That looks like Ray Davis, doesn't it? On the bench. Working out until it hurts. That'd be typical of Ray. So this is one of the articles, at least, by Dennis Jones of the leader. So these are the Darian boys who moved into Abercwmboi Rugby Club premises, and there's some characters there, I tell you now. In 1990, Wayne Thickett was 24 years old. He had competed in the teenage, he had competed in the juniors, but he was now competing in the men's open division.
It was down to the enhanced supplements, to be honest with you, that I didn't want to do, and I just didn't want to compete with. Then I had a break in my bodybuilding career because I ended up going to Bournemouth and competing in the ANB Mr. United Kingdom, which was the Association of Natural Bodybuilders, and I came third, which was great. From there on, I stayed with the ANB with Jerry in tow, obviously behind me 100%, with me every competition, never left my side. And so did all the boys, because I had massive support of all the boys in the Darian Gym. They would always follow me, get a minibus, end up having they'd end up having a drinking weekend rather than a bodybuilding weekend, but they were always there to support me wherever I was. So the Darian Gym was a family, an absolute family. Everything in there was, the boys were friendly, anybody wanted anything, you'd all help each other, and it all came from the Darian Gym. The camaraderie was amazing, to be honest with you.
In 1991, Wayne went on a major winning streak. In June of 91, Wayne was made Mr. Italia. Competing in A and B shows, Wayne was the winner of the lightweight Mr. Yorkshire in 91. Wayne was also Mr. Wales in 1991. And he also went on to win the lightweight Mr. Britain in 91 also. This is the pre-judging round of the Mr. Britain 1992. One of the judges has just called for an abdominal and thigh comparison. So usually the judges are comparing the top 2 to 3 guys. They will compare every single body part, and usually by the evening time, after the prejudging ends, they'll have a reasonable idea of who the top 3 are. Here they're asking for the most muscular pose. Wayne won this show in 1991. This is the pose off, which is basically a free-for-all. All the contestants do freestanding posing. Wayne won the Mr. Wales title in 1991, and he won the Mr. Britain title in 1991. He followed this up by retaining both titles, the Mr. Wales, and winning this competition, which is the Mr. Britain 1992. Wayne also won Best Presentation Award for the Mr. Britain 1992, and let's see him in action here.
The boys that I trained with, training partners, all through the years. I mean, I had obviously John Dav, which was a massive influence on me. Jason Lockyer, very, very strong boy Jason was. He was, you know, a great training partner. John Pop, Maxie would be there 6 o'clock in the morning with me training, 6 o'clock in the evening training with me. You know, not actually training me, but they'd be in the gym at the same time, so I had company. Brilliant times in the Darian Gym. As it went on, the natural scene was my forte actually, because I done really well at the end there with the Mr. Britain, 3 times Mr. Britain, 4 times Mr. Wales, and I competed unbeaten from 91 to 97 in Britain. Then I retired, and then I decided to compete again in 2005 just for my own sake. And I came back and won the NPA then, which was Natural Physique Association, Mr. Wales in Porthcawl. I'd done a lot of strength things in between powerlifting with the likes of Graham Furlong, another one of our boys, and the Cynon Valley Strongest Man. We done that. But I would like to say that obviously the bodybuilding isn't an easy road to take. Very, very hard with the dieting, very hard with the training. You have to have support of your family, where I did have with my wives, which was my first wife, Deborah, and my second wife, Erica. And they were very supportive, and you needed that, to be honest with you, to be successful. And obviously my family behind me as well as the Darian Weightlifting Club. But I don't think you'll ever see another club like the Darian, ever. I don't think you'll ever see a weightlifting club like that anywhere, because it was, as I say, one big family.
The best bodybuilder by far in the Darian history was Wayne Thickett. Wayne retired from competitive bodybuilding at the end of 1997. Wayne was undoubtedly Jerry's greatest bodybuilding protege. Another protege of Jerry was Steve Williams. If you recall, Steve Williams from 1976 to 1981 won 4 Welsh championships in the 60 kilogram class. December the 5th, 1997, 14 years after retiring back in 83, Steve Williams is back into powerlifting, and he is back with a vengeance, says the article. He is once again breaking records like he did back between 76 and 81 in powerlifting, and now he's in the Masters class, which is between aged 40 and 50. In 1998, 1999, 2000, Steve won the 60 kilogram Welsh Championship in the Masters. And in 1998, 1999 and 2000, he also won the 60 kilogram British Championship Masters. Champ competed in 4 World Masters, placing a credible third in 1994. Peter Morgan, then Champ, won the British Masters in 96 and 97, and by the time we get to the year 2000, Champ is 46 years old. Steve sent us this picture, and I quote, he says, "Jerry preparing me for winning the Worlds in 2001. In 2001, Steve Williams won the British, the European and the World Championship in the 67.5 kilogram Masters class. In 2002, Steve once again won the British and European Championships in powerlifting. In the leader on June the 6th, 2002, we find this article, Steve in the record books. A Cynon Valley powerlifter has broken 3 European records. Steve Williams, age 47, set a hat-trick of new records at the European Championships in Paris. He won the Masters lightweight class with a squat of 132.5 kilograms, which was a new record, an 87.5 kilogram bench press, and a 181 kilogram deadlift, which was also a new record. His total was 401 kilograms, beating the previous record by 11 kilograms. He smashed it. Williams, who represents Wales under the European Drug-Free Association rules, is enjoying a successful season, having won the British Masters earlier in the year. Steve, later in 2002, also won once again the World Championships in the 67.5 kilogram Masters class. Turning the page then to October the 25th, 2002, this in an article. "He's got the power," says the article. Merthyr Tydfil Council worker Steve Williams took part in the World Drug-Free Powerlifting competition and came first in his division. Steve, age 47, did a 177.5 kilo deadlift and 90 kilo bench press. The event was held in Edinburgh, and Steve said, "I've been doing this since I was 19. We are not part of the Olympic Committee, but it is a competitive sport." Yes, powerlifting is a very competitive sport. So all the accolades to Steve Williams. Absolutely fantastic career. Serge Nubret, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Tom Platz. Symmetry, proportion, and a small waist. "Look, Bet," Jerry would say, "you got 5 inches to put on your arms, 5 inches to put on your calves, and 5 inches to put on your neck. 3 sets of curls, 3 sets of calf raises, and 3 sets of shoulder shrugs." As a 17-year-old kid, by the evening time, you were measuring your arms, thinking they'd grown from 13 inches to 14 inches. Frank Zane, the winner of the Mr. Olympia in 77, 78, and 79, was the epitome of the classic physique. Another classic physique, Mohammed Maccabi here. Both favourites of Wayne, and so is the great Serge Nubret, another classic physique. Frank Zane defeated Arnold in the 1968 Mr. Universe. Sergio Oliver defeated Arnold in the 1969 Mr. Olympia. Arnold lost a 3rd time. What was the year? What was the title? And who did he lose to? In the early 80s, I was also awed by Frank Zane and his classic physique. This is Wayne Thickett. This picture echoes those ideals of proportion, of symmetry, of balance, of a small waist. It's quite extraordinary. Frank Zane and Wayne Thickett in a pose down? You cannot be serious. I am serious, I'm very serious. Right, try to remain impartial here. Frank Zane on the left, Wayne Thickett on the right. I reckon Wayne Thickett takes him, you know. Frank's a bit tighter in the abs, I agree. But apart from that, no, seriously, Wayne epitomizes all those wonderful qualities: the symmetry, proportion, the small waist, the tight abs. All joking aside, I think you might agree that Wayne Thickett is from the same mould as a Frank Zane, as a Steve Reeves. Wayne forces his way to title, reads Sports Header. Wales Online, the 21st of July, 2005. The article reads, "With his rippling muscles, Wayne Thickett of Aberdeen has scooped the Mr. Wales bodybuilding title for the 4th time." 39-year-old Wayne took the honours despite an 8-year break from bodybuilding. He also won the overall Best Presentation Award during this year's competition at the Grand Pavilion in Porthcawl. "I decided I would compete again in 2005, said Wayne, who has followed a rigorous training program for the past year to pave the way for his return to the sport. He trained twice a week, 6 days a week, and followed a strict diet of protein, carbohydrates, and essential supplements. For the competition, Wayne had to reduce his weight from 91 kilograms to 68 kilograms, going from a 36-inch waist to a 26-inch waist. Father of three, Wayne is a member of the Natural Physique Association, which puts a strong emphasis on drug testing to encourage bodybuilding the natural way, without steroids. The 4-time Mr. Wales champion admits bodybuilding is an intense sport requiring a high degree of dedication. Wayne said, "Bodybuilding can become all-consuming, particularly pre-contest. It takes over your life." Wayne continues, "I would like to thank all my friends and relatives for their support and understanding throughout my training. Above all, I would like to thank my wave of supporters from Abercrombie Rugby Club who followed me to the pavilion and saw me achieve my ambition." Wayne began his bodybuilding career as a teenager, entering his first Mr. Wales competition when he was just 13 years old. He has since gained the title of Mr. Britain 3 times, Mr. Wales 4 times, and has also been named Mr. United Kingdom and Mr. Italia. After coming third in the natural Mr. World competition in 1997, Wayne decided to retire from bodybuilding. But this year has seen his dramatic comeback, and he hopes to continue his success in 2006.
I first joined the Darian in about 1992. I'd been training for 2 weeks when I first met Jerry. He walked in dressed quite smart because he'd just come from work, said nothing to anybody, and went straight to the register book, his Bible. Head down, counting the money. He then looked up, gazed around the gym, and he noticed me, a stranger in the gym. He went purple in the face, started pointing his finger and raged a series of questions. "Who are you? What's your name? How long have you been training? Have you paid your membership?" After a few minutes, I managed to get a word in and told him I had paid an older guy with a barrel chest who always trained arms and went on the running machine. "Oh," he said, "that's John Dav." Jerry collected the money from the book, turned around and walked back out. I'm sure many members can recount similar stories. I had no idea of resistance training, but quickly learned from the likes of Paul Snap, Gwyn Gilson and Denzel Thomas. I was making steady progress for a year or two when one day Ray Davis walked into the gym, pilot. I still consider him one of the best trainers I've ever met. Brilliant to witness his attitude and approach, and certainly inspired me to try and push on a level. back to Jerry, I suppose. I started to gain Jerry's trust by collecting the gym cons and keeping them safe until I could get them to him. After a while, I was honoured to be given my own key even. Over the years, we became close, and being useless at DIY, he would often be at my house fixing things for me. I'm glad to say I was able to repay some of those favours in his later life when I was often asked to go up his ladders to clean drains or paint windows. I was in my early 30s when in 2005 we went to a natural bodybuilding show, and I was immediately inspired to give it a go the next year. I plucked up the courage to ask Jerry how to go about it, and was met with the brilliant words of encouragement. Look, just leave it there, bud. But after a week or two, he came to the house, seen the effort I was putting in to get my meals ready, and then he agreed to support me, but he had certain demands that I listened to him only and trained his way. After a year's dieting, I was ready for the show, having lost over 2 stone in weight and 5 inches on my waist. I think me and Nathan Colquhoun were eventually the last people to represent the Darian in a contest in 2006, and I'm sure Nathan would agree with the amount of time Jerry put in with us. Jerry had numerous sayings, too many to list, but 2 which stand out there. Committee, I am the committee, and I am the Darian. Although the Darian is still going, I am grateful for the friends I've met there. I felt I needed a new direction. For me, it just wasn't the same for me without Jerry's influence, and he was incredibly supportive when I said I'd left to join another gym, the Powerhouse.
Outside Puthcall Pavilion, lunch with Steve and Jerry. So Steve is on the left hand side and Nathan Colquhoun on the right hand side here. At about the 9th minute of this video, we asked you to remember the name Colquhoun. If you recall, young Alan Colquhoun won the Junior Mr. Wales back in about 1959-1960 period. Well, this is Nathan Colquhoun, and this is his grandfather, Alan Colquhoun, from 1959-1960 period. Absolutely amazing. There's Jerry on his motorcycle. He loved that thing.
The Darian would never have been the Darian Club if it wasn't for the Master Blaster, Gerald Hall, who gave his life to this club. I would like to thank Nick Pritchard and Leighton for all their efforts in compiling the history of the Darian Gym from the start until the present day, highlighting those individual characters and recording their history for future generations to enjoy. I am immensely proud of being part of the story of the Darian along with so many others. It was a unique weightlifting club that I don't think will ever be repeated.
Jerry, the coach, within the Darian has helped many young players to further their strength through weight training, with Ian Evans, Neil Burnett and David Lockyer, both playing for the Welsh rugby team at different levels. David's now playing for Pontypridd, having moved from Neath, where Lee
and I'm here today with Pontypridd captain David Lockyer. Thank you for agreeing to do the interview. My first question is, where did you start your rugby playing career and who's been your biggest influence?
I started playing when I was in school really. I played football for all through my young ages and went to school, and when you go to comprehensive school it just seems that all the comps go to play rugby, so yeah, I went to rugby and Abcombe boys started in the 15s team. Brian Talker, one of the boys, so it just went from there really. Biggest influence is all my mother and father. They've since I started playing, it's just followed me everywhere, supported me through good times and bad. So yes, I owe a lot to my mother and father.
The Darian over all these years has always had a fantastic camaraderie, and hopefully this will carry on being the case. The success of the club to date being its members winning so many titles in Olympic, powerlifting and bodybuilding. Indeed, from this very small club having produced more champions in all these sports than almost any club, not only in Wales but also throughout the whole of the United Kingdom.
I was also in Caerphilly and came over because he used to take Anne over to see. I was only there 3 days, and when he came over, or came down rather, he said, sister said something like, "Oh, I come over to see